But his logic is really bad. The double-blind review process is going to go away very quickly. The next 5 years, it will go away. Either that or they're going to modify it, and we're talking about it at the Journal World Business where I work. We're talking about having you sign the reviews. Because right now you're anonymous. And me, trying to refute an anonymous person is very difficult to do. You don't know what you're talking about. This is what you've missed. Or you've given a generic review like I can do, and you haven't even read the article. How in the world can my career be based upon only a 10 or 20% chance, and then him sitting there shooting at me the whole time I'm trying to get something published? The way to resolve that is to say, here's my review and my name's on it. I sign my reviews now. They know who I am, and if they want to argue with me, that's fine. But hopefully I'm not going to give them something that turns into a camel. I'm going to give them something that improves the horse that they're trying to design. Another change is taking on, and this one you're going to look at and say, what the hell does that have to do with what we're doing? The ownership of journals is being consolidated. I work for Elsevier, and our journals with Elsevier. And you say, I kind of heard of them. They have 1,200 journals. 1,200 journals. The managing editor that I work with, she manages 40 journals. They've got it down to such a science now that they know that break even for a journal, or one of their journals, is how many subscriptions? Take a guess. When do you start making money at a journal? 300 subscribers. Not more, not less. 300 you break even for them. If you look at the United States, the number of libraries that are dedicated to business, there's about 2,700. So they've got to get about a fourth of the journals accepted into the libraries, and they start making money. Journal World Business, when we took it over from Columbia, the Columbia University, we were at about 300. We're now at about 10,000. Think of the money they're making off it. That's one of the issues. The more money they make, the more they're going to try to control. Let me tell you how a journal controls an editor. They say to the editor, gee, we'd really like to get some more distribution in this journal. We're going to focus on Europe this year and try to go over there and get it. Now, what is he implicitly telling me? Start accepting more articles from Europe. One of the big areas is the Middle East. It's a virgin territory over there. We want to go over and have some people pick up our journal there and start reading our journal and put it into the new universities that are coming out in that area. That says to me, I better get some articles from the Middle East. So just a slight inflection in their voice has changed the way I, as an editor, look at whether I want to accept a paper. I'm going to be quite honest. I've got one right now from Africa. Do you know how many papers I get in a year from Africa? 0. I've been doing this 14 years. You know how many I've gotten? 0. I have one. It's awful. It's awful. Am I going to figure out a way to make that a better paper? It's in Africa. There are 3.2 billion people there, guys. We have to get some sort of distribution. You can say from a humanitarian standpoint, we need to be talking about African problems, and that's what this paper does poorly, but at least it does it. Another thing that's going on is, and this one bothers me a great deal, and again, there's a reason for it, but I still don't like it. Methods are driving journals. Methods are driving the research. You all have a common language, whether you know it or not, and it is what? Statistics and math. You all understand that. You know all how to do it. So what happens is when you get out and you're really good, you're really productive in what we're talking about tonight, all of your stuff is going to be driven by numbers and stats and stuff like that. And what we're finding out, after watching this go on for 40 years, that's what's getting published. Those are probably the only things getting published. It's really an interesting conversation when you talk to a Shelby Hunt, the guy that pointed out up here. Shelby, let me ask you a question. Is it easier to publish with or without data? No doubt about it, with data. Is it easier to publish with the newer statistical methods than the older ones, SLM or whatever the hell that is? And the answer is yes. I said, okay, Shelby, I don't publish with data. Does that mean my articles are even that much harder? And his answer is no. It's easy to publish when you don't have data. And the answer is no, it's not, because almost every article you read is going to have data in it. What I'm concerned with is, it's the cuteness and the newness and the excitement of the technique that you're using that people are biting on rather than the idea that you're presenting. My degree's in marketing. I quit working in marketing 25 years ago. Why? Because they were talking about the same problems they were when I was a graduate student. They hadn't changed. They still haven't changed. Why? Because they got into extremely high mathematics, statistics, analysis type of stuff that looks cute, but I don't think it solves the problems of the day. I wrote a paper for the journal Retailing, and I sent it to the guy who's a very good researcher. And he sent it back and he said, I haven't seen this happen yet. Let's wait until it happens and then resend this article in. I said, well, great, Pete, now I'm going to be a reporter rather than an academic researcher. So when the event took place, I sent him the article. I said, how do you want to publish it, Pete? He said, no, it's old news. We can't follow the practitioner. So, but what's the key to this is, if you look at it, this is the story rather than the way to get to the story. And that's wrong, in my opinion. As a person that generates new knowledge, I think that's wrong. We don't have enough people doing new knowledge, we have enough people doing that. There's going to happen, and it's happening inordinately rapidly, and that's the substitution effect between hard journals and electronic journals. I look at electronic journals and I say, well, hell, anybody can publish in those things. They're not even for real. I don't have a paper on my bookshelf over here that I can take down and look at it. Oh, and the answer is, it's coming, guys, and it's coming like a freight train. They are going to switch over as soon as Harvard Business Review or Econometrics does it, or American Economic Review. One of them is going to do it because of cost. The costs are too high, and the next the argument is going to come, and you're going to see it in the lawsuit. They charge so much by institution, it's discriminating against poor institutions, you have to make it available to everybody. The reason the University of Chicago got out of the business was what? They knew that was going to happen. They published the Journal of Business, a relatively good journal. It no longer exists, and the reason for it was they knew they were going to have to convert over to electronic, and they didn't want to make that conversion because their journal was so expensive, the poorer schools couldn't buy it. So what we're going to see is we're going to get more and more of these, and what does that mean if your career straddles it? You've got some of it that's the print type, and some of it's going to be electronic. I have no electronic on mine because I think they're silly, because I don't know anything about electronic, and because I'm an old timer. But you're going to have to face this issue. Publishing in the hard copy, publishing in the electronic, and saying that they at least complement, if not equal to each other. And I think that electronic will take over in the next 5 years. Okay, the next thing you have is, and David would be a very good, and David wouldn't mind, David and I are very close friends. He would sit here and say the exact same things I'm saying. People have gotten into being a zealot. Zealots being people who don't just look at the facts, they embellish the facts, they build on the facts, they get emotional about what they're doing. I'm emotional about repatriation. And what you've got to watch out for is when you get into a journal or you get into a field and you know the people, I can tell who's reviewing the people by how much of a zealot they are against it. When Peter does mine, I know exactly who it is, just that quickly. I just reviewed a paper for somebody in England, and I knew immediately who it was because it was Ireland data, and I know the guy that's managing all the Ireland data. What you're running into here is you can't be a zealot. You have to be willing to adjust and take into other people's ideas and concerns and so forth. And I see a lot of zealots and not very many true, I hear where you're coming from. The next one is an interesting issue. Why am I interested in the proliferation of special issues? Journal, and it's hard not to find a journal. I just got accepted right before we came over here, one in Journal of World Business and Special Issue. What's the issue with special issues? Major change for you all. What do you need to understand about special issues? Why should you even care about this? Journal of World Business has an acceptance rate of around 9%. Except when you do a special issue, the acceptance rate is 50%. Why? It's a very specialized area that we made a call on. Write a paper on global decision making and its impact on global managers. And how many people write in that area? Very few. The special issue is trying to be just that special on this narrow topic. And you say, how many people actually work in that area? And the answer is most of the time, very few. We had one rejected last month. It really made me mad because it was my area. And they said, I don't know anything about the topic. Now that's hard to accept at 65 and been doing this for 40 years. I don't know anything about my topic. Okay? But what the special issue says to you is you should look up in your key journals, whatever you think those are, whatever level you want them to be, and say, I'm going to keep up with special issues because my hit rate opportunity goes from 10% to 50%.